McLaren has forgotten what good racing looks like, and that feels like a kind of crazy statement given the fact that they just won the Constructors' Championship for the second year in a row with 6 race weekends left in the season. However, the conversation is not about the fact that they just did this incredible feat, but the way that their drivers were interacting with each other on track, the fact that one of their drivers was not on the podium celebrating the Constructors' Championship, and once again, whether or not one teammate wronged the other on the track, and whether or not team orders should have been invoked to right that wrong. And frankly, while it's annoying to watch either Lando or Oscar really kind of whine over the radio, as it's been the case all season, about why they feel wronged, why the team should change it, and really why they should be the favorite child of the weekend, it also is a situation that McLaren themselves have created. There has been this conversation about team orders in Formula One forever, but I don't think in recent memory we've ever talked about it this much with a single team. Over the last 2 seasons, McLaren has made these big choices, setting a precedent that no matter what happens on track, they can control who wins, and that they're going to be the ones to decide whether or not a certain incident is big enough to make a change on track, whether a bad pit stop is part of racing or something that should be changed because of the team's fault, not the driver's fault, whether one driver's move is aggressive racing or if it is something that has to be changed. And I think the fact that they have set a precedent of allowing their drivers to argue over the radio on a public line and consistently make these arguments like, I should be able to make this move, I should be able to be swapped, that wasn't right morally or ethically or as a teammate, this is racing. And I actually really don't even fault the drivers at this point. I think Lando and Oscar should always make their case, given the fact that McLaren has set the precedent that maybe it could work. But by setting that precedent, I feel like no matter what they do, it's always going to be this weird wrong conversation. Because Lando's move in lap 1 of this race was a bold move, had no action taken by the stewards, and if it had been anyone other than Lando, it wouldn't have been a conversation. But I think what's more frustrating is not even just which driver is getting the favorite edit this weekend. It's more so how long it affects these races. This was a lap 1 incident, and it was something that we were talking about for what felt like a good amount of laps, where Oscar was still arguing over the radio, this needs to be changed. And then it continued with frustration throughout the time where he was asked to focus on what he could control. But I think it's an unfair ask, and I think we've had the exact same radio behavior from Lando earlier in the season when choices didn't go his way. And I think we're seeing them not race as well as they could be, given the fact that this is the environment that they're in. And whether Oscar chose not to be on the podium or McLaren chose not to wait for him to celebrate, it's a bad look when it comes to team unity not to have both of your drivers on the podium for a Constructors' Championship celebration. It feels like we have not only this season, but last season, where McLaren continues to sort of mastermind instead of allowing racing. And I think that is going to result in a place where it may feel like Lando and Oscar shouldn't be teammates. For you, how did you feel about this situation today? Do you feel like papaya rules and team orders at McLaren have affected the quality of racing this season? And who do you think is going to take home the World Championship in the end?